Okay, welcome back. Great to have you here. And yeah, I hope yesterday's video was really helpful for you to get a much more clear picture in your mind of how you're going to build your practice in a fraction of the time it takes most practice owners. We don't want you taking 5 to 10 years to do this, or if you feel like you've hit a plateau, what you saw in that video should give you a very clear understanding of how you're going to break through that and quickly scale to the next level. So, as promised, I wanted to shoot a short video today that documents my journey a little bit in building a really successful practice in a very competitive market. And I'm going to show you in a nutshell how I did this. Now, as you recall from yesterday's video, the first 2 years of building my practice were a real struggle. I graduated from school, and basically, I'm not going to belabor you with all the details, but basically, I went through just a really dramatic series of ups and downs and challenges, and it really pushed me to my edge trying to figure out how to do this. And in the first 2 years of my practice, I did everything I was told to do. I did networking and speaking and just tried to get really, really good clinically so I would get a lot more referrals in the door. I threw up a website. I did what I knew how to do. What was it within the kind of scope of my conscious awareness? I tried it. The problem is that I was working really, really hard. I was putting a lot of effort into it, and I didn't really have a lot to show for it. After a couple of years, I was seeing about 20, 25 patients a week, but I had big goals. And that just wasn't even a fraction of what I needed or wanted to really feel, actualized in this process. So, what did I do at that time? Well, I really had two options. I could either just let this all go and abandon it and just basically get a job. That was one option. And quite honestly, I was very close to really considering that. I'm really grateful that I didn't because there's no way I'd be here now doing this with you and for you. But the second option was to just give it my all in a new way and take some risk and hire a mentor or a coach to show me what I was doing wrong or to show me, where I could fill in the gaps with new strategies. So that's what I did. I took a little bit of a leap of faith and hired a pretty expensive, at least for me at the time it was, a pretty expensive coach who was really good at internet marketing. And I just figured that was the area that I was really weak at and needed some help with. So the website you're seeing in front of you here, Google, this was really where we put our focus. And I got really, really good at understanding how to play the Google game well. And this was back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. So it was at a time where I think it was a lot easier to rank high on Google for a variety of keywords or to do Google AdWords. Now, where we're at currently, I would actually recommend putting a little bit more focus on Facebook because there's just a lot more opportunity. It's a lot more new in the game and not as established. Google, you definitely still want to use though to build your practice. It's just too big to ignore. And depending on how big your city is, there are very likely hundreds, if not thousands, of people typing in keywords to find people like you in your city. And yeah, the game is to rank high at the top of the searches for those main keywords. Now, your main keyword is going to be your city and your modality. So if you're a chiropractor in Denver, it would be Denver chiropractor. Or if you're a naturopath in Phoenix, it would be Phoenix naturopath or Phoenix natural medicine, something like that. So you get the idea. You would just take your city and your modality and kind of fill in the blank. That's your primary keyword. But what a lot of people don't realize is you have a lot of secondary keywords that you want to rank for as well. And these can be literally dozens of keywords. So what I did is I made a big list of all my main keywords that I wanted to rank at the top of Google for. And then I went about systematically structuring my website to make sure that I was ranked high for those keywords. And eventually, in a pretty short period of time actually, I was just getting flooded with business from Google. And honestly, Google searches, patients coming from Google outweighed word of mouth in my practice about a 4-to-1 ratio. And it didn't mean that I wasn't good at what I was doing. I got a lot of word of mouth referrals, but the numbers on Google were just so beyond what can happen in the referral game. So if you're just sitting around waiting for referrals and you think that's all that marketing is, this should really challenge you to think bigger. And not only with what we're talking about here, but with all the different pillars that you saw on yesterday's presentation, you really want to get good at all of them because that diversity is what's going to just flood your business and give you the visibility you need to be as successful as you want. So with Google, what we want to do is dominate the front page as much as we can. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people think it just means like getting your website ranked for a keyword somewhere on the first page of Google, and that's kind of it. But there's a lot more to it than that. You want to have a very clear strategy in mind in terms of leveraging this particular website. So if we just type in a keyword, like let's say it's Denver chiropractic or Denver chiropractor, and we can see here that the first thing that pops up are a series of ads. The next thing that pops up is a map, and the next thing that pops up are what we call organic searches. So here's my take on it. Local market domination with Google comes down to blanketing your website across all three of these really important areas. You have ads, you have maps or Google Places, and then you have organic searches. You really want to be featured prominently in all three of these areas. Now, if we start with Google AdWords, this is probably the easiest way to get going because you can just pay to get ranked. You can set up a Google AdWords account and bid on certain keywords, and as long as you bid enough and you're willing to spend the money to rank for those keywords, you can show up at the top of Google for your main keyword, like your city and modality at the bare minimum. And in a lot of markets, that's still a very smart thing to do because there really isn't that much competition for Google AdWords. But in this example, like Denver chiropractor, that's a pretty competitive search term. You would have to expect to pay quite a fair amount of money to be at the top of Google for that keyword. It might even be upwards of, sometimes it's $4, sometimes it's $8 per click, sometimes it's a lot more. It just depends on your industry and how competitive it is. In some markets, though, if people just aren't that savvy online, you can do this for very, very cheap, sometimes under $1 a click. And you definitely want to have an AdWords account set up if that's the case. So your first goal is to do everything you can to rank well for paid ads. The second goal is to get featured in Google Places, or it's also called Google Maps. So this generally pops up across all local searches, where Google is going to feature your business in their map setting. And that is also definitely a place where people click through a lot. It's prime real estate on Google. So in this example, we can see that this chiropractor right here is in the top spot for this search, and they're getting the lion's share of the business from this particular listing. So I'm sure they are doing really, really well by having that listing there. And if we ask why are they listed so high versus others? Well, there are a lot of factors that go into your Google Places listing. I actually have a 2-hour webinar presentation that I've done recently on this exact topic because there is a lot that goes into it. But by far and away, the primary thing that you want to do is get reviews for your practice. Google Places reviews. And you can see here, this practice has 81 reviews, the second one has 87, and then the third one has 7 reviews. So generally, whoever has the most reviews is going to have a big advantage. So that's one thing I really want you doing right now, right away, is getting a lot of reviews for your practice. Satisfied clients or patients, make sure that they've written you a review on Google Places, and preferably Yelp and Facebook as well. We'll talk more about online reviews in a future video, but I just want to make sure you're thinking in this direction right now, okay? All right, so that's Google Places. You definitely want to do everything you can to get listed here. Third is your organic listing. So that's the area you see here on the left side of the page. Just when people type in a keyword, these are just the organic search results that pop up. So once again, this chiropractor who's in the first spot here is getting the lion's share of that traffic. If on average, let's say 5,000 people a month are typing in that keyword, about 40% of those people, or maybe about 2,000 people, are coming to this particular website based on that search. So if you do the numbers, that's a lot of potential business that this chiropractor is getting from being ranked so high. So that's your goal. You really want to do everything you can to get in that top spot for your main keyword. Sometimes that's definitely easier said than done. It just depends on how much competition is in your area. And there are certain factors that are not necessarily in your control, at least right away. One of those would be age domain, the age of your particular domain. So if you just set up a new website, and you're going up against sites that have been out there for 8 to 10, 12 years, it's going to be a little bit more challenging because Google bases your positioning here on how much perceived authority your website and your overall information has. What Google wants to do is give its customers, essentially its searchers, the most reliable and helpful resources possible. So whoever's at the top of Google, Google has determined based on their algorithm that that is an authority resource for their searcher. And that is going to build Google's reputation. It's going to create a really positive user experience. So your goal is basically to give Google everything it wants to ensure that you have an authority site, and Google will then reward you for that. What does that come down to? Well, there are a lot of factors that go into this. It's a big conversation. But what you really want to focus on is creating fresh, useful, dynamic content for people that helps them, that gives them value, whether they become a patient or client or not. You're sharing tips and resources and insights that build goodwill and trust with your audience and make people want to come back to your website and engage with it. So that's generally where a blog comes in really handy, or at the very least, having an article section on your website. That is one of the main strategies that I used to build my practice. Is I had a large series of condition-specific articles that I search engine optimized and got them ranked at the top of Google for. And every day I was just getting a stream of new patients calling from those articles and from all the different forms of content I had on my website. If you can have the most content-rich website in your area, you'll have a huge advantage in your marketing. There's no way around that. Now, yes, that's work. It takes time. It's something you need to build out over time, so you don't need to be overwhelmed by that or rush it. But it's something to consider, just getting on a content creation schedule over the next few months and knocking out a couple of articles a month at the minimum. Is that mandatory? No. There are faster ways to do it, and you want a combination of free/slow strategies and paid/fast strategies. That's really the best way to market. So this is just one way to do it, but there are many, many more that are a lot faster. But you should do this. By all means, you should do it because it makes a huge difference, not only in terms of your Google rankings and your perceived authority, but when people come to your website and they see that you have information really specific to their issue, your conversion from your website is going to skyrocket. It's going to go way up. The last thing you want to be is perceived as all things to all people, where you just work with anybody with a pulse, and the whole presentation is just really generic. Most people are motivated to see you because they have a very specific top-of-mind problem. You want to make sure you have content that speaks to that, and that will really help your conversion, okay? So, your goal is to get as close as you can to the top of Google for your organic keyword listing here, both for your primary keyword and then for all secondary keywords that are relevant to what people are typing in. And you can get more and more kind of out of the box and creative with how you do that. But definitely, I would just start with your modalities and then conditions that you treat, and make sure you've optimized your site really, really well for those. Now, that's a big conversation. There is a lot that goes into that. And you can certainly go out there and trial this and give it a go. But it's also important to know this is a great example of where good coaching and mentoring can really accelerate this process, take all the guesswork out of it. So that's what I offer in working with me in more of a coaching context. I'm not going to share too much about that right now because really I just want to help you and give you some great value and make sure this is a good fit for you. And then in future videos, I'll share a little bit more about what I offer and see if it's something you might want to join me in. But for now, this is where I want you thinking, is dominating Google for these three areas: ads, Google Maps, and then organic listings. If you do that, you should see a very dramatic spike in your patient volume, in your overall practice numbers, in your revenue. Google should really be one of your primary resources for getting new business. In future videos coming soon, I'm going to talk a little bit more about other platforms that you want to utilize, such as Facebook. And there's a lot of controversy and a lot of kind of misunderstanding about how Facebook can help you, but I'm going to really clarify where you want to put your focus and what you want to avoid and what works and what doesn't, just as I did here. Because there's a lot even within Google that can be pretty distracting and overwhelming. Your goal is just to rank at the top and get featured prominently across all of your main searches, okay? So, big picture strategy, this is where I want you focusing. Let me know what questions you have. Um, and yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that, you guys. But this is essentially what I did amongst several other things. But this was one of my big ones. Was I got ranked really well across Google, and even in a really competitive market like Boulder, Colorado, where I built my practice. Not many other people were really doing this or taking it seriously. And it just gave me an easy opportunity to get tremendous visibility for very cheap and flood my practice with as many people as I could handle. And I was blown away by this, honestly. Like, I have an intake form where I always ask, where did you hear about us? And you definitely want that too. And on that intake form, I can't tell you like how many people check the box for Google. I heard about you on Google. So it can be that powerful. You do need to develop the skill to make that happen. In this video, I just want to get you more or less broadly thinking in this direction and seeing how important it is. And even in smaller markets, it's still a really good thing to do because it's a lot easier. It's always a trade-off between how many people are searching versus competition. And in smaller markets, there's a lot less competition. And yeah, there are fewer people searching, but it's a lot easier to do this. So either way, though, whatever your population base is, whatever market you're in, you want to take Google searches very, very seriously. It's not going to go away. It's only going to go more in this direction. And it's a big strategy, okay? It's a really important one. All right, so let's leave it at that. In future videos, I'm going to elaborate on some of those other promotional pillars. I'm going to talk a little bit more about mindset, and we'll just keep moving forward. I hope you're getting excited and feeling some momentum. You're getting some clarity on how to do this, and it's overcoming some of the doubt or confusion that you've had. Trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. I came into my practice with no marketing background. I actually got my bachelor's degree in Eastern Religious Studies. And when I graduated from school, like I had zero interest in marketing. So coming from where I've come from, if I can do this, really anybody can. But you do need to get somewhat passionate about it. You need to see the value in it and formally develop these skill sets just as you have your clinical skill set, okay? All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll leave it at that, and I look forward to connecting with you in another video soon. Take care.